wanted to know which planet was causing your suffering? How about Earth?
Hey everyone, Brandplex here, back with a new Duelists of Eden video. For today's video, I kind of want to introduce what I consider a pretty strong intermediate Saffron deck. I know I've done a lot of decks about like these beginner decks and these slightly better decks, and I should probably actually have checked my previous video about the intermediate decks to see if this was included on there, but this is basically going to be the Saffron deck that I think any aspiring Saffron should learn how to play, just because it really has some strong Saffron cards that you will probably always want to have in the back of your mind whenever you're building a Saffron deck. Obviously, there are many more cards you can add in for flavor, but these are cards that you should always have while you're deck building because they fit Saffron very, very well. Now, before we get too deep into the video, again, just plugging the tournament that I'm going to host. I'll have the start.gg page linked in the description and comment. Full disclosure, this is my first time creating a tournament on start.gg, so it might look pretty weird, but hopefully it's a good enough starting point for you guys to just sign up and show interest, and I'll be able to work off of that sort of initial interest wave from there. So anyways, getting right into the video. I unfortunately don't have footage of this video just because I've been busy with IRL stuff and I've been busy with making YouTube content, doing the tournament, and playing Grand Blue Fantasy on the side. So unfortunately not able to get stuff of me playing this gameplay live, but I'll try my best to explain the combos and the angles you're looking for during the training tool stuff. And then when you guys go into custom mode, when you guys play your ranked games, you guys can keep the ideas in the back of your mind and try and execute them there. And obviously training mode isn't the best place to show off everything, but I'll try and give you guys the hypotheticals that should still be applicable as you're playing the game. So this deck, which I've labeled Fair Saffundies, named to be disputed by non-Saffron players, it's going to be the classic step package with Missiletow included with that, Paragon and Thunder as your main burst spells, Minigun as a very strong neutral tool, and Northwind as the kind of mental noise spell as well. So these spells, these are all, again, pretty classic Saffron spells. Missiletow is a spell that used to be very, very strong on Saffron, or just in the game in general, but with a few nerfs, it's become a lot less reliable, but it is still very, very strong if you know exactly what you're going for with Missiletow. So I'll try and cover use cases for all of these. And so I think the step package needs no introduction. Just as a brief refresher, if you somehow forgot, step slash into all slash into push slash is going to be a very good combo. Step slash all slash is a very good combo, but all slash step slash is not. And then push slash is obviously just very strong for melee, and these steps are letting you branch off of that melee hit. And if you hit your push slash and then you use step slash afterwards, it's a gap 2, which means your opponent can shield it, but not the biggest deal. That's still guaranteed shield pressure, and you can still use spells afterwards. Just be careful if they have blink, because they can punish you very easily if you step into them and they have blink. Now, where Missiletow fits into this equation is that Missiletow can be cast right after any of these invade spells, and it'll be a guaranteed 10 damage unless your opponent hit steps very weirdly after the step. And it's very rare where Missiletow won't combo after these step spells, and so the best way you can counter that oddity is by, again, doing step slash into auto slash, and then that's gonna be 14 damage for 4 mana, which isn't the best, but still pretty good. Or you can use Saffron's Sparkler or Spartex to kind of deny the hit step on the follow-up, which will, again, let you hit the Missiletow very easily afterwards. Now, Missiletow, again, nerfed a lot since its heyday, but the reason why Missiletow is very good with this deck in particular is because you can actually follow up Missiletow or step Missiletow with a lot of these other spells. So like Paragon, you can see I can adjust by 1 step and hit Paragon. Now if your opponent is 2 steps away from Paragon, well, it's kind of hard for Paragon not to be at least 1 step away, but let's say your opponent hit steps backwards, so the Shiso goes from where he's standing now to 1 step over here as you're hitting them. Then Paragon won't quite be a true combo, unfortunately. It'll be more like a I think it's like a gap 5, which means it can shield it, and that's the effect of the nerf that went out. However, it's still a very good combo, and obviously Paragon's very, very wide spell, so the odds that your opponent is too far for you to chase with Paragon is pretty low. And then Thunder, very same idea. If you're able to walk, you have to be really fast with this one, but you can actually walk 2 steps for Thunder. You can see it's a -2 gap with perfect frame buffering, but it's a very efficient way to use Thunder, and you can see that for 4 mana, I deal 17 damage, which again, isn't that great, but considering that you're getting that follow-up from a step spell, it's very, very good. 2 mana deal 6 is a little subpar, but still good enough to be justifiable. And so if you want to base your entire gameplay around hitting these step missiles into one of these payoff spells, whether it's Thunder or Paragon, then you can be a huge nuisance with Saffron, because obviously with Saffron you can cover your steps with your Sparkler. You can even use Spartex if you want to go for an off angle above your opponent just to be a bit safer with your approach. There's a lot of ways to make steps very hard to deal with as Saffron, and so that's the reason why step missiles is very strong, because if you have a lot of mana and you hit your Sparklers or you just pressure them well, you can almost always catch them with at least these step missile follow-ups. Now, Minigun, obviously we've seen Minigun with the subs before, but again, just as a very brief refresher, if you use a step spell and then walk into Minigun, you'll do 6 damage with the Minigun, which is suboptimal, but obviously still very good. You won't be able to combo off Minigun that well, unfortunately, because a lot of the time you're hitting your opponent is, you know, kind of overlapped with you running backwards. But if you were to hit Minigun and you were straight on your opponent, that's all 4 bullets, and in that scenario, you might be able to follow up your Minigun with Sparkler stuff, which would lead into more, obviously. And then again, step auto into Minigun. This version will actually give you all the bullets, just because it's a weird quirk with step auto where like the lag is a little bit better, or the timing is a bit better, because since you haven't moved rather from the step auto, you have a bit more time to shoot out all the Minigun bullets, because this auto slash is still technically the full step value. But if you step slash, walk, auto slash, and then Minigun, maybe then it gets a bit weird, but it's just something to be aware of when you're using this spell. Minigun, again, with Thunder, very good, because you can Minigun and then walk into Thunder. You can Minigun into W1, which lets you go further out from Thunder. And the very same things that happen with Paragon, where if you Minigun, Paragon follows up almost immediately after, and even if you're far away from Paragon, you can always walk. And so if I'm super far away, you can even try and run forward. You can see there, that's still gap 2. And yeah, Paragon also combos with Minigun if you're 3 away, as you can see here. And I don't think it combos from 5 away. It actually does. So yeah, Paragon, very good with Minigun. I do think there's one weakness where, yeah, you can see here that there is a small gap where you have to walk down for it. It's a gap 4, but that's where, you know, Thunder comes into play. That's where your W2 comes into play. Something I didn't mention about Paragon when I was talking about it, Paragon is a very good spell for all of your off angles. Actually, I didn't talk about it earlier, but I can talk about it now. Paragon, very, very good with all of these, with almost every spell. You saw the Minigun example just now. Push Slash we'll talk about as a niche spell in a second. But you can see with Paragon, if you hit Paragon, you can walk into your W2 or into Thunder. If you hit Paragon, you can do W2 into Thunder, which, not the most efficient use of mana, but, you know, 22 mana or like around 20 damage if you hit Paragon for, was that 5 mana? It's competitive, you know. It's not the worst thing in the world to deal that damage off of 2 spells. You burn your entire mana bar, but you just run away, and then your opponent has to chase after you while they're regenning. Thunder doesn't quite line up that well with Paragon, unfortunately, but Paragon is the much wider coverage spell. You can see just how much space it covers. Obviously, it's a very similar hitbox to W2, so if you know your W2 hitbox, or you know the Paragon hitbox, then you know the other hitbox as well. Sadly, the soft spot of W2 doesn't perfectly follow up Paragon, but something you can do with that 5 gap is that it's a very quirky thing where if your opponent doesn't respect the W2 hit, then your sour spot with the W2 will actually tag your opponent as they hit step away, which can be very cheesy and let you follow up with Thunder if for some reason you just didn't think you would hit it, but then you do. It's probably more useful for stuff like your step slash. You can see here that that's a combo. It's also a combo with this, to be fair, but I think it's more relevant for auto slash. Let me check really quickly, because auto slash will be the next one we're talking about. Yeah, gap 1. So Paragon with the slashes, I don't know what I just took off there. I took off Thunder, that's fine. So Paragon with the slashes, with step slash, any range you hit Paragon except for the 3 away will be a true hit. But that being said, if you do hit the 3 away Paragon, then you can just burn a few W1s and run away. You don't have to commit to the step slash, and you can always watch for your 3rd card just in case you have a card there that works better off of the 3-way Paragon. Auto slash works a little differently, unfortunately, than step slash does, because it does go right in front of your opponent. this makes you can see there that the above and below, those would have been true off of step slash, but they're not with auto slash. Same thing with the far hit is no longer true, but the close hit in stark contrast to step slash, which would have put you over your opponent, this is actually a combo. So you can also just do Paragon, close Paragon into auto slash if you want to. So really keep in mind those differences. And then the other direction where you want to use steps into Paragon, unfortunately, Paragon step is kind of weird. There are certain scenarios though where you can combo them into each other, like you can see there with auto slash. If you knock them into the third column, then Paragon will be fine. But let's say that they're in the back column and you hit them straight on, you do have to walk upwards and then Paragon, and then there's an entire issue there where if they hit step, you'll whiff, and if maybe you throw anyways, they hit step and it hits, and it's just something to be aware of when you're using Paragon with step slash specifically. Because if you use auto slash, it's a little less weird because again, auto slash does combo this other way, and so it's just there's always the walk back too that you can do with auto slash. So it's like auto slash is just more versatile with confirming Paragon, while step slash you probably aren't really relying on Paragon in that scenario. That is one of the weaknesses of the Paragon Thunder package with this invade package, is that it can be a bit odd when your opponent isn't on the front row, but that's what push slash is for, to push them off of that area, right? And then Missiletow with Paragon, I think it is almost a combo with all of these areas. It's obviously, it's a -3, so it's not quite the best scenario, but your opponent will have to respect the Missiletow coming out afterwards. So just be aware of that. If you're trying to burn your Missiletow in a very safe manner, then after Paragon will be pretty good. Obviously, you can always just run up to them and W2 them, and that's totally fine. Or if you're far or close, you can always do W or Paragon into W1 and then Missiletow. Just be aware that if you're W1, I'll go over this Missiletow stuff in a second actually, but Missiletow is very odd with SAFFRON's W1. So yeah, we'll talk about that now. So Missiletow, obviously we covered it with the steps, we covered how it has some pretty good combo potential. You really don't want to use Missiletow just in the corner where your opponent can't see you, because the odds that they walk through Missiletow is super high. What you want to do instead is that you want to at least chase your opponent a little bit and throw a W1 out into Missiletow if they don't have steps or an off angle. If they have steps or an off angle, then it's actually really risky to use Missiletow in general. You want to try and get them to use that step slash first and then Missiletow them, because if they step slash you while you cast Missiletow, you're not covering their invade, so you might get punished for using Missiletow. So always at least either look for W1s to Missiletow, which will be a true combo once you're 4 away or further. Any closer and there is a gap, which means your opponent can shield, hit step, or even just punish you instead. But as long as you're farther away, Missiletow, W1 Missiletow is very safe. Same thing with the sour spot with W2, but the sour spot with W2 is kind of hard to land comparatively to just W1 being thrown out. And then Missiletow, obviously if you hit Missiletow, you can walk and follow it. It's a very similar idea where if you're 2-way, Thunder is barely fast enough for you to walk up into it. And then Paragon, you can only walk one space into it, but again, since Paragon is quite big, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. You can see that in most areas of the map. If they were to use Paragon or use Missiletow, then the odds that I hit Paragon afterwards are decent, and at worst they have to shield it if you're fast enough. Now Minigun, we already talked about Minigun a little bit, but Northwind is probably the odd one out of all these spells. Northwind will not combo with anything but the invade spells, just because it's too slow of a startup and travel time. If you use step slash and auto slash, obviously Northwind will come out in time. What Northwind is for you to practice your hit confirms. You might notice this when I'm playing, actually when I've seen many of my games, because I haven't played them on stream. But what I try to do with Northwind is I try and follow up and go where I think they'll be hit. So if my opponent is standing here, then I'm going to look for the Paragon follow-up so I can punch them with Paragon Thunder afterwards. If they're moving side to side, I'm going to try and walk. I'm going to throw Northwind and try and walk with them side to side, and then do the same thing. If they're walking up and down, and then just a crapshoot, I'll try and just predict which vertical tile they're on, so I can follow the hit step as well. Northwind is just a very good spell because, again, it is a bit slow, so be careful if you're trying to compete with a fast spell like Whirl, another step. If you're late to the cast like Kunai, you can be countered very quickly, also by like Gunner Laser, for example. So you want to use this when your opponent is kind of like forced to respond to it without a faster spell to interrupt you. If your opponent is forced to shield or dodge, or even just move out of the way, then you can learn where they move, or even just like throw it and then punch them for moving upwards, right? Or if they dodge, then it's just a mana neutral spell where you get the priority because you get you threw out your spell first, so you're already regenerating mana as they're dodging, and you get the prio on where they're going if you're fast enough to read it. Or if they shield it, you know, if you're fast enough, you just punch the shield and maybe get a shield break, which is pretty hard to do, but very fun to see happen. But yeah, these videos go on for way too long. I want this video to be a bit shorter, but I want to be really thorough with all the potential of these spells. Again, I know a lot of these spells are quite common in Saffron's playbook already, but these are very, very good Saffron spells. Like, these are spells that you can almost not go wrong with any Saffron deck, just because they work so well with their kit. And if you're playing Saffron, like, no matter what list, like, no matter what deck you're running with Saffron, at least 3 of these spells will probably make it onto that list, unless you're being very, very quirky with what you're playing. And you can really not go wrong with any of these spells. Like, Paragon is probably the spell that I've fallen out of love with the most out of all of these cards, but it's really hard to deny the absolute pressure it puts on your opponent, especially if you hit them multiple times in one match. They are super, super scared of it, and it does give you a lot of great value if you do hit it. So that'll be it for this video. Hopefully it was a nice, short and sweet one. I won't be able to make a video tomorrow because of a work event, but hopefully this will tide you over until then, or until Thursday rather. So yeah, hope you guys all have a good day or night wherever you are. I will try and go through all the characters as it comes up to the tournament, just so that, you know, everyone has something, but we'll see how fast they go. Anyways, see you guys next time. Have a good night or day. Bye bye.